The time is 5:45, and I call to order the public hearing on Cherry Street property rezoning. This is a hearing for public comment on an ordinance amending the code of the Borough of Carlisle, Chapter 255, by amending the zoning map through rezoning a parcel from R3 high-density residential to UM urban mixed-use district zoning. The parcel of land identified is by Cumberland County Tax Parcel Number 05-20-1796-001 and having a street designation of Cherry Street, consisting of approximately 4.48 acres. Then upon the conclusion of the hearing during our regular meeting, Borough Council will consider and possibly vote upon enactment of the ordinance. I know we have representatives from the applicant, so we'll have you step forward and give an overview, and then council will have any questions, and we'll open it up for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hubert Gilroy on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is Oz Fund, Inc., which is an entity that's first here time in Carlisle, but they've had some success with other residential and mixed-use type developments down in Lancaster. I have some folks with me, kind of a basketball team plus some bench strength. But if we have Jeremy Feekins, who's the main person with Oz Fund, and I have Chris Champy, who's the engineer, if there's any questions along those lines. However, as Sean indicated, this is a hearing for public comment, so I plan on being brief and just presenting some of the basic facts. Jared was kind enough to provide us with his summary of how the plan has proceeded. We've met with borough staff maybe 2 or 3 times to review things. We've gone out to some of the neighbors. My clients have met with the folks at the school district, talking about affiliation with the school district on this project. Our plan is, if the rezoning passes, the next time it would be before you would be in connection with the land development plan. However, our intention prior to that would be to reach out to the neighbors as per your ordinance and schedule a meeting and work with them as far as the proposed development. This plan, I probably was here before council maybe 12 years ago, and it got a permitted project for solely residential, and it never got built. So now we have a proposal for mixed use. There's other mixed use immediately adjacent to the property. Our plan is residential and some other uses, which would include a potential counseling, a medical office, and daycare. Again, we don't have a specific plan put together. In fact, we haven't even done the survey for the property yet until we could see if it's going to be rezoned. We filed a sketch plan with the application as required by your application format, but again, we don't have the specific details. The sketch plan suggested about 112 apartments and about 10,000 square feet of other mixed use. Like I said, some of those uses, like I mentioned, daycare or some counseling or medical offices. That's the plan at this point. Jeremy's here if you have any questions for him specifically, or our engineer is here. But again, this is a hearing to take public comment on the rezoning. The report filed by Jared basically suggests our proposal fits your ordinance like a glove as far as mixed use and to get something moving over at that property. I just drove by it. It needs some work to have some activity in that area, and that's what we're hoping to do. Any questions for me or our clients?
Are there any questions from council? No? Okay, thank you for the overview. Then we'll open it up to public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on it? Just come on up to the podium and we'll need your name and address.
Good evening. How you doing? You need my name and everything?
Yes, we do. Name and
Patrick
address.
Andrews. I live at 412 Lincoln Street.
I haven't seen you in a long time, Patrick.
I know. Nice to see you. Yeah.
Almost didn't recognize you.
Yes. Yeah. So as I said, I live on Lincoln Street, directly adjacent to this property. And I've watched the video from the last time there was a discussion in this room about this. And I just heard Mr. Gilroy talk about how they spoke to the neighbors. And I can tell you that nobody on my street received a notice. Nobody. Nothing in the mail about this at any point ever in any year that I've lived there since 2007. So, in addition to this, the physical sign that was posted to say that this was going on and there was a hearing tonight was posted on a plastic, I'd say 2 by 18 sign with metal staves in it, like you would for a campaign put in a yard, with no printing on it, scotch tape, and a piece of paper, as physically far as you can get from any residence in April. So as soon as it rained, the sign went away. The only reason we know about it is one of our neighbors took a picture of this sign and passed it around via text before the rain came, because I was out of the country and other people were working and not looking all the way at the end of the street in the weeds where they've stuck the sign. So there's some disconnect or dishonesty or something going on here. I would invite all of Borough Council to please come down to Lincoln Street, where it would theoretically intersect with Cherry Street, on a Saturday afternoon, and see the 4 or 5 families of children who play out there, who play field hockey or street hockey. They rollerblade, they're playing on the sidewalk, they're crossing the street to play in each other's yards and climb trees. And think about what 112 1 to 2 bedroom worker units would do to that street and the traffic. It won't be the same neighborhood. And it's gonna, I'll tell you, our kids are real upset. You know, we've described them what's going on. Some of them are sitting here right now, right? They play out on that street. So trying to be as calm as I can, but I am a little pissed off and upset. I understand that there's a process. People want to do business with unused real estate. They have every right to come in and say, I have a plan, I'd like to do this, but this is not the way this is supposed to happen, right? And it's certainly not a use that we want to see. We don't want to see people coming in and out for daycare and medical appointments and everything else, much less 112 residents added to the end of our block. We're not looking for that. So we'd ask you to reconsider all of this as the process allows. Communicate clearly, frequently with us. And I would suggest that you look into why this mailing never made it to our mailboxes. I know the post office has been a little jinky since the 2016 election. I understand, but it's not that jinky that not a single one of us would get the letter. Something happened there. And I think that you should probably know what that is. I don't know if you have any questions for me, but that's about all I have to say.
So since we talked very briefly about 45 minutes ago,
Yes.
I have been schooled on the difference between so the letters were not sent out because they are not required to be sent out in this particular instance.
Okay.
So when a zoning hearing board, and my friends can fact check me if I say anything wrong, when a zoning hearing board hearing goes through, there's a 200-foot radius, 200 feet, that it goes out. And because this is a rezoning by the council, that legal requirement is not in our purview, right?
It's not in the MPC.
It's okay. Municipal planning code. So there's municipal planning code that requires us to do certain things in particular ways. And in this case, the posting on site, which we can look into what those requirements are too, which I was not updated on that. That was the requirement, and that's why the letters did not go out. I do not know when it comes to the developer what neighbors were spoken to or how.
Nobody on our street. And let me just say, okay, and if it's not a requirement, why wouldn't you do it anyway? Because you live in this community, right? So let's do it anyway. That's what I would ask of you. I would certainly, if I was sitting up there, and maybe one day I will now, I would never even think of allowing something like this to happen in a neighborhood without talking to the residents and getting their input on how this impacts. Again, I'm not going to speak for every resident here. I mean, I'm getting a little bit of applause. I appreciate that. But it's not that we're opposed to any development going on there. But we don't want a bunch of 112 apartments and businesses and all of this in this tiny, quiet, peaceful neighborhood with all of these kids. You can tell me that the factory sitting there, it's doing nothing, it's an eyesore, it's a blight on the town. I'm not arguing that point. But, I would maybe integrate that lot into what the rest of the neighborhood looks like. Instead of are we going to drop a McDonald's in the middle of Thornwell Park? I mean, what are we doing? is my question. When we look at what's actually there and what's being proposed, it doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense for us and our neighbors and our children. So anyway, I appreciate that. And I know that, don't worry about that thing about the let notice and whether you were right or not. It's okay. This is all happening very quickly because we didn't know. So we would, at the very least, like a little more time so that we can gather as community members, and would, at the very least, ask that you stay any action today. So thank you.
Thank you. And I will just note that after a different rezoning, actually, I don't know if it was rezoning, but we did change our own policy for land use subdivision approvals, and that is what was referenced, that there is a required outreach when a redevelopment happens, so that there's meetings with the neighbors. So this is not the actual development. This is what is changing on zoning of what's allowable either under residential or urban mixed use. So I will say that we have made changes to outreach in other ways, and so it's not that we haven't tried to do better in these realms of public outreach.
And Jared, this was published. There was a legal advertisement that was published along with the posting of the property.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's required by the municipality's planning code. Additionally,
May I respond to some of that?
sure. And I think it would be helpful, Attorney Gilroy, if you would touch on what the current zoning, if this were
That's
not changed, would
the
permit.
current zoning for the property is the R3 high density residential zone. As I indicated, there's already a plan on file that was approved for residential use in this property with no mixed use designed at all. So we wouldn't be here if somebody just wanted to come in here and just put in residential, a variety of things. I couldn't say, I forget what the plan was. Interesting, I represented the developer way back when that plan got developed. I don't know how many units, but it was intense residential use. So I think want to make that point just for people listening. The second point is the applicant had nothing to do with the sign posted on the property. Just so folks know that this wasn't my job or the applicant's job. And finally, we're planning on having the meeting. Your ordinance requires, before we file a land development plan, to send out an invitation to everybody within 200 feet of the property and invite them to come in and comment on the plan. That's like I indicated, that's the first thing we're going to do even before we file the land development plan with council. So we'll be back here assuming the rezoning gets approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have somebody lined up for public comment. Ma'am, we'll need your name and address.
Hi, my name is Kate Mullen, 451 West Penn Street, and I'm here with my neighbor in the same street. Mr. Gilroy was so kind to state that the R3 high density, but then can you please describe to me what urban mixed use zoning is?
Yeah, Jared, you want to field that one? You probably be able to give a better description.
Sure. Urban mixed use was adopted after some long-range planning processes for brownfield and manufacturing redevelopment. It essentially allows a similar residential density to R3, which is what currently is zoned for this parcel. But it also allows a variety of non-residential uses. The biggest difference I would say between R3 and UM is the design standards and design guidelines that require an applicant to consider some physical design requirements that blend the development into a neighborhood. Whereas R3, the existing zoning, still has high density residential allowed by right, but it doesn't have those design considerations to look at sort of context.
And Jared, the R3, is there any open space requirement in the R3?
No, UM for big projects, say for a 5 acre or more tract, requires a mixed use development to happen with residential non-residential and open space. In this example, the doesn't necessarily have that requirement, but the applicant suggested in their sketch plan that they're willing to provide all three elements: an open space element, a non-residential, and a residential.
So they'd be going over and above what would be required by the ordinance amendment.
Correct. Since it's less than 5 acres, they don't have that obligation. But as was stated before, they've met with staff several times. We've talked about transportation access and kind of the difference between the existing R3, again, high density residential with really no context sensitive design standards or guidelines, and still allowing a variety of uses to happen, but with some design considerations that could make the project more appropriate. The biggest thing that we tried to explain to the applicant and to council during public meetings is that the rezoning only enables things to happen. So under the existing R3 zoning, there was a site plan that was already approved with high density residential and disconnected streets with parking lots. And staff looked at this and thought, because that zoning district was adopted well after R3 was adopted, those types of design requirements just weren't even a thought at the time that subdivision was approved. We suggested that would be more appropriate because you still get the same high density, but we can sort of look at the neighborhood context and try to blend it in a little bit better where R3 doesn't have those considerations at all.
So Jared, from your perspective as a planner, the along with what the applicant is suggesting they'll do under their plan is more integrated with the neighborhood and potentially less intensive in effect to the neighborhood, or at least no more so than what you would have with R3.
I think that's correct. I think the additional benefit with if a non-residential component was added, which the applicant suggested they would do, is when it comes in for a land development, we get to look at all those concerns: transportation, traffic, all the different things, noise and whatnot at the time of land development. But by enabling, say, a small-scale non-residential use like a daycare or something like this to happen, you end up with something that maybe the neighborhood could use, with all the children in the neighborhood potentially needing daycare for adults that are going to work. Having that in a neighborhood could be beneficial, whereas R3 doesn't allow that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you said the use of a daycare, and let's sort of dumb down your vernacular to the fact that pretend like I'm a 3-year-old. Say what you just said to me, to the general people who in this population don't understand the zoning, the ordinances, everything that you have to say.
Do you want me to try to talk?
Well, I can do it, and I'll try not to be as insulting as what you just
No,
suggested.
insult me, please.
No,
I want you to dumb it down so that I understand.
I'll try
my neighbors
I'll try to speak.
who understand.
Just with the most basic language. The existing zoning would have a lot of residential dwelling units allowed by right.
What kind of residential dwellings?
Several different kinds. You could have garden apartments, which is basically an apartment complex with lots of floors and lots of units. Okay, in a parking lot.
And to what tenants are we pandering?
The zoning doesn't consider the person in the housing, it only considers the land use activity.
Taylor, you got something? Yeah, you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but
I'm sorry,
we're taking public comment, so we're gonna do one at a time.
apologize.
That's okay. Ma'am, was there anything else? Any other comments?
Just continue with the explanation.
So when I say high density, in basic terms, that means for a given piece of land in low density zoning, you can maybe have, say, one home for a half an acre, or a large acre lot, one home. In high density, you could maybe have a bunch of homes for the same piece of land.
So urban mixed use zoning, that would constitute what I've read, and from what I read on the Borough website, it's supposed to be a satellite from downtown. Okay, you're shaking your head no.
Yeah, can I just pipe in? I live across from the old tire and wheel site, so I live in between two sites. Both
Okay.
of those, both the IAC, the old Maslin site, and the old tire and wheel site,
Okay.
they were rezoned as and that was the first time around 2013, maybe. I don't remember exactly when the was created, but before that, we never had anything. So was created when these factories were closing down because suddenly there's like a factory and then it's going out of business, and the only thing, because those are under industrial previously, and so industrial uses are heavy uses, right? So factories. So they it was before I was on council, and they designed an urban mixed use, trying to think of how they could put in residential, change it from industrial, change it from the heavy uses that they were, and they rezoned Tire and Wheel, IAC, the Tyco site, which is and then the what's the name of the building that's the Marauder? What was it called? The business. Murata, yeah. So that parcel was rezoned as the Murata Business Center that's right at the end of Lincoln. And so this parcel was not rezoned as and so if you look at, for instance, Tire and Wheel, right? So there's mostly there is all housing. There is a plot that still can be commercial. In that case, and believe me, I went to every single meeting about those rezoning because it was before I was on council, and I was trying to do exactly what you're doing: be a neighbor, ask good questions, trying to understand it and digest it for my neighbors. So I took pictures and all those sorts of things. And so I was really trying to understand what it's supposed to look like. What will it actually look like? And so in that case, especially on the Tire and Wheel site, yes, there was a requirement for some sort of commercial, but part of that requirement ended up being just the community rooms that are adjacent to the apartments themselves in the townhouses. The playground was put in there as well, and then that large green space in the middle is just that, it's green space. So like when Jared was talking about required green space or open space, that's kind of what is not in the R3. So some of these other zoning types, R3, R4, R5, like I live in R4. It's pretty high density, right across the street from Tire and Wheel. So when we think of high density, it's not always high. It's sometimes just like, our little neighborhoods that have houses, close together. Then some are sprawled apart, and then they come back together. But high density does mean that there's a lot of people that live in close proximity. So that is the process. Really quick, just that's the process that we went through for Tire and Wheel, and of course those are much larger parcels, but the same kind of mixed use of having different types of elements is what allows for, and the residential zoning hasn't been updated in many years. So that's why Jared was saying when it comes to how it looks and how it functions within the realm of the adjacent neighborhoods, the has better design standards because it's been more recently looked at and through a more modern planning focus. So that's what I mean. Here's my overview. I don't know if it...
I sincerely appreciate your comments, and given the fact that you went from you're in an R4 residential neighborhood, but you were talking about R4, but this is urban mixed use zoning, and I think what we want to know is what constitutes a urban mixed use zoning. I think that I'm just going to put the writing on the wall, and I am speaking on behalf of neighbors who are not here, and I'm the voice of my neighbors. And I just moved into my home a little over a year ago to seek sanctity and peace after a very tumultuous situation. And there are a lot of my neighbors I hate the fact that I'm going to be the scapegoat for this, but people are concerned, is it going to be low income housing? And I'm so sorry, I don't mean to be disparaging to anybody. And we all have our lot in life. But that's, I think, a lot of my neighbors who aren't here. That's a big concern of ours. Because I used to live at the courtyards, and then Grandview Court came into play. And then I moved out of the courtyards because of the crime, the prevalent crime. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm just speaking honestly, and I really appreciate the fact that we have this forum in which I can address concerns that my neighbors aren't brave enough to be here, but I am brave enough to tell you this is my neighborhood's concerns.
And we talked a little bit about out in the hallway. I mean, one, we can't discriminate based on people's wealth, right? And we wouldn't want to. Two, you could have low-income garden apartments in the R3 zone right now. If that were your concern, and if we were receptive to that, although I don't think a member of this council would be receptive to the suggestion that we shouldn't be building affordable housing in this borough. But even if that were your issue, this doesn't change anything, right? Under the R3, you could build a low-income housing property development, right? So that doesn't change on that issue. So the issue then isn't that one, and one I would even reject that as a premise that we should even consider that. I think what we need to be looking at here, and what I tried to draw out through Jared, is you could have garden apartments in the R3 as it is right now, and there was a project that was previously submitted that, due to the economic conditions back then, I think got pulled. That's my recollection. It's been a while. What I think the question, ma'am, that you were asking is what's the all about? And Jared tried to answer that, but really any zoning district, what it's all about are the uses that are permitted in that zoning district, and then the context in which those are built. So when I say the context, how integrated is it to the neighborhood? Right now, as I said, in the R3, you can just drop those garden apartments in. A number of units. Again, I don't remember how many units there were in that project. My recollection is that it was somewhere 70 to 80 units at the very least. It may have been more than that. It could have been a little bit less than that. But what you have in the urban mixed use district is a number of potential uses that can integrate in the neighborhood, things like laundromats and other needs that a neighborhood may have, although there's the Cherry Street laundromat right down the road there. But it also allows other residential dwellings, single family semi-detached dwellings, two family detached dwellings like duplexes and that sort of thing. It allows garden apartments again, and then it also allows mid-rise apartments and stacked flats. So really from the intensity of use perspective residentially, you're not going to see that much of a difference between, if any, between what's being proposed here and what could have been built under the current zoning, right? What we are going to get, and what I think is important, and why we would even consider this, is what Jared was talking about earlier, is the ability to try to better integrate this potential development into that neighborhood, so that instead of just having these garden apartment land development dropped in there, we can better integrate it in the neighborhood by having, yes, the apartments, but also potentially a useful commercial activity for that neighborhood. I used to live right near the corner of Cherry Street and Penn, so I know that neighborhood very, very well. I know the potential impact that could have on that neighborhood. I really think, from my standpoint, this is a better situation for that neighborhood than what's in the current zoning. And then the bottom line is when they go to land development, you'll have another opportunity to talk about this. There's going to be traffic studies. There's going to be a lot more analysis once there's a concrete plan. All we're doing tonight is considering whether we should change the zoning map for this parcel from R3 to urban mixed use. And again, from my standpoint, I think it's a better situation for the neighborhood than what you would potentially get out of the R3. And again, for many of the reasons that Jared talked about earlier.
Mayor, you have certainly appeased some fears that I have had because I looked on the internet with the Borough Code, and of course you can't believe anything and everything you read on the internet. But
you step a little closer to the mic because we may have some people by Zoom.
But the fact is that I did research and I went on the Borough and to the website, and the urban stuff, it was channeled more or less for downtown. But when I was discussing things with my neighbors, like, okay, it does say downtown, but it says that the urban zoning is supposed to be sort of a satellite of downtown and to sort of connect, at least that's the context of what I read. And it does make me feel a little bit better that, from what I read with the Borough website, that yes, we have Cherry Street Laundromat, which you very well know, but I want to make my community a better place. I'm living next door to potheads who continually smoke ganja and affect my health. People who have shot out my windows with pellet guns. And I will say that Carlisle Police Department has been very, very on point. And I just want my community to be a better place. And that's why I'm here. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm disparaging them in any way, shape, or form. But I care. I care about my home. Plus, I just adopted the cutest little dog that he's so precious. Right, Rhonda? She's not going to die. But I just want to keep my place safe. And when my neighbor confronted me about this, that's all we want. That's all we want. That's all we want for our kids, for our family members, for our parents, for everybody, is to live in a safe community. And that's why I'm here. And I really want to thank you because Mayor Schultz and congregants, I feel that you have heard my concerns and that you care. And we're all in this world together. So I'll step down from my soapbox.
Okay, thank
Thank you
you
so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
The soapbox is there for this exact reason.
Right.
So.
And we live in this borough. We're neighbors. At least two of us live within a stone's throw of the UM district. I live near the old IIC plant where that's all sprouting up along Spring Road. So we've seen it firsthand in our neighborhoods. So
And I'll just also note, so we're talking about rezoning and the uses when it comes to residential. We talked about how it's very similar on both, but there's more opportunities for other options with commercial or other types of neighborhood specific options. But I will say that when I did go through all those meetings about what was happening, in these two factories, all the things that you've already said are the conversations that are to come when it comes to the land development plans. And everything from, if you look at those townhouses that are at the upper portion of the Tyrant Wheel, I was the one that asked that they didn't all look the same. And I was like, I wanted them to look like the neighborhood around it. And if you look at it, there are some gabled roofs that look like a barn because there are some houses in my neighborhood that look like a barn, and different colors and things like that. So the first time I didn't ask for bike racks, and they need them. right? So I've learned and we've learned certain things to ask. So when it comes to our planner and when it comes to us, we ask these questions because I've learned along the way. And so when the next one came around, they have bike racks and there's seating outside, and people do, come together in a community way to, because the whole idea is that as we do develop things within the borough, no matter where, it shouldn't be a silo. It shouldn't be a satellite that doesn't feel like it's that feels like it's disconnected from the rest of the community. So those conversations are ones that I've led, the ones that I've asked questions and have been able to make adjustments. Does it mean that, I think the difference is that it's not a yes or no, like it's going to be an old factory forever or it's going to be this. It's kind of a range of possibilities and neighbors inputting what can happen. But that's not tonight. Tonight is really just about the zoning. But I just want you to understand that all your questions and fears and concerns are opportunities to engage throughout this entire process. And this process is going to be, years in the making, probably, from the time that it would take. Yeah. Yep.
You have to say my name again, stuff.
No, it's you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks. So I just want to respond to a couple things that were said up here. First of all, I want to say on behalf of the Lincoln Street crew here that there is no objection to low-income housing. We probably object to relabeling it as something else. Okay, object to that a lot. No objection to low-income housing. What we object to is altering our neighborhood in a way that detracts, which opening up our street and adding 112 souls at the end of it with their vehicles will absolutely do. And Sean, I love you, but I'm sorry. I disagree with you that having mixed use is going to be the same as just high density residential. Aesthetically, yeah, maybe it's better. But when you have businesses that are taking clients all day, every day, and they're coming in and they're going out and they're getting deliveries of supplies and all those other things, that's a whole nother level of traffic. I want to suggest to you all that you've done a good job, Jared. Great job explaining the zoning ordinance. By the way, I was following you. Katie's trying, but we're getting there. But what it sounds like is that the high density, I guess it's R3, and maybe even R4, maybe they need to be updated to include these things like open spaces and incorporating into neighborhoods. I don't know why we wouldn't require that in any development in our community if we want to make this the best place in Pennsylvania to live, right? Which I happen to think it is one of the absolute best places to live. So that's why I'm still here. So, I would ask that you consider all of this. And I will go as far as to say that we are still opposed to this rezoning right now because you're giving them what they want to move forward with their plans. And we're not interested in that. We're not interested in it.
I'm
Absolutely.
sorry, I couldn't hear over the pause. We're giving them what they want.
If they want this rezoning, because what I think Mr. Gilroy said, I'm not quoting, but he said approximately that this allows it to be make fiscal sense for this development for them to be able to have this commercial rent coming in addition to the residential rents. That's why they need the mixed use that makes it financially viable to do this development. So we would like you to deny that. That's what we're asking you to do, is to say no. Maybe think about redoing these other zoning delineations, the R3, the R4, updating them to be in line with the urban mixed use stuff that has some really great elements to it. But we're not, we are absolutely opposed to this 100%, regardless of anything that was said here by anybody tonight. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you very kindly for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Go ahead, sir.
Thanks for creating this forum. Tim Moyer, 338 Franklin Street. Just want to ratify what Patrick shared. It seems like we're framing like we have to move forward with this designation. Like that's like the only option. But what that really does is unlock 112. I mean, my God, that's a lot. That's a lot of people in one little spot at the end of our block. So we've already got a lot of people just like stepping on the gas and burning through down Lincoln Street. So that's already kind of a problem when we've got lots of families, kids playing. And I'm not even clear what happens on Cherry Street, how they'll be affected. But I do just want to reiterate that I'm a big fan of creating more affordable housing. I know our country is in a huge crisis with this, but I think we need to look at the context and the density here for this plan. And if we say yes to this today, it undoubtedly is ushering in this very commercial, very lucrative agenda as being proposed, not just a hypothetical. I mean, on Zillow, my neighbors pointed out. So if you look at the property on Zillow, we've got some. I know these are like initial. So I'm in the design field, not architecture, but I'm in design. So I know you got these like initial mock-ups or whatever. But this is a lot of houses. It's a lot of floors, a lot of people stacked up, and they'll all have cars, and some of them will have multiple cars, and they'll have emergencies as well. So that is definitely seemingly inappropriate for the context in which we're in. And I'm not super hopeful that if we say yes to this rezoning today, that maybe there'll be a stopgap later on. Like I guess that's kind of like also implied here. Like, oh well, we could say yes to this; it'll unlock some things. But don't worry, we're gonna have some future meetings where maybe we'll say no to this developer down the road. I'm not so hopeful about that. I voted for many of you, and I appreciate your service. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that bears some clarification. When a land development plan comes in, as long as it's compliant with our ordinances, it would need to be approved. So this developer right now has, as we talked about earlier, would be willing to do things that go beyond the requirements of the UM. And I've said before, I think I said when we first discussed this, we need to approve these ordinances as if this developer may sell to another one, and who knows what the next one is. So, that point's been stated before and well taken this evening. Is there any other public comment? And Stephanie, do we have anybody by Zoom? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you alongside.
Eric Smith, 121 Southeast Street, which obviously is not near the proposed rezoning. I just wanted to reply specifically to concerns about traffic, because while I don't feel qualified to comment specifically on the Cherry Street neighborhood, I certainly agree with the concerns I've heard a lot of people say about how people drive in this town and worries about increased traffic and speed. And I think that, especially knowing a lot of the folks on this council, at least what they've discussed in campaigns, that we shouldn't assume that every single person moving in has a car or will need a car. I moved to Carlisle from a much more rural area because I didn't want to have to drive everywhere. And I don't think I'm the only one, as this borough grows really quickly. And so, sorry to change the topic, but I just want to set that precedent that I think, especially if it's something that we are all coming to these meetings and talking about when discussions of planning for things like roads and traffic ordinances specifically come up, we can make some positive change to make traffic something safe and manageable for all of us living in the borough. Regardless of the density or population growth that seems to be happening one way or another. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Isabel Harmon, 115 East Ridge Street. I'm going to follow up on a topic that is in line with the gentleman who spoke before me, and it has to do with speeding in school zones. I don't know about the density. I'm on board with you, but where I live, we have an elementary school at South Street and South Bedford, and then we have an entrance to the middle school at the end of South Bedford that meets the trail to the Latort Trail. And I can't tell you how often we have parents speeding down the road and other people speeding down Bedford Street in the school zone, even when the school zone has the flashing light going. No one pays attention to that speeding limit. So I'd like to know if the board will consider, when at another time, because I think the topic before mine takes precedence tonight, but if you will consider in all school zones putting in speed bumps or speed humps, which I would prefer the hump to the bump. Sorry. But because I think it slows people down a little bit more. So that's all I wanted to say. I think school zones are not safe. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Isabel. And this is still the public hearing on the rezone. So any public comment at this point? I appreciate the comments, Isabel. This you may have stepped in a little after we began. This is on a rezone, and then we'll have our regular public meeting in a moment once we've completed this hearing. But we've heard your comments, and of course we agree with the need for safety in school zones. Any other public comment on the rezone on Cherry Street? And Stephanie, I was about to ask you about Zoom. Anybody by Zoom? Okay. Anything from council? Any questions? No? Okay. Then what will happen is I'm going to adjourn this hearing, and then we're going to move right into our regular public meeting, and then we'll eventually during that public meeting have consideration of a vote. So this hearing is adjourned. And right into the public meeting, the regular meeting of Borough Council, May 2025. We'll begin with a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Perry.
Hello, everybody. I had some things prepared that I wanted to, for us to all consider and think about. And I think that right now, what we are experiencing in this country with people losing their jobs, people losing their homes, the discrimination, the racial tension that has always been there, but we're seeing it more prevalent now. I think that as a borough in a smaller place, it's really important that we think about all the people that are being affected by these things. And it's a lot of us. And I say us because I've experienced almost all of those things. So tonight, I want us to just take some time to think about the people around us, the people that are struggling financially, that have lost someone. We have Mother's Day coming on Sunday, and there are people who will have a hard time celebrating that day because their mother won't be here. Some of them for the first year. So I just want tonight for us to take a few moments to think about people who have lost something during these last few months. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Councilor Perry. And Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Landis.
Here.
Ms. Mellon.
Here.
Ms. Perry.
Here.
Ms. Roos.
Here.
Mr. Chow.
Here.
Mr. Stubbe.
Here.
Mayor Schultz.
Here. So first part of the agenda is opportunity for citizen visitors to be heard. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to move on to the presentations. We have sort of a public safety night here tonight as things lined up, and so I'm going to ask. I'm not sure who from Cumberland Goodwill wants to join me at the podium. We're going to do a proclamation. We are extremely fortunate to have an incredibly professional and incredibly busy every day um, uh, EMS company here in the borough of Carlisle, Cumberland, Goodwill, and they've served us. I don't know how many years now, Bobby. Since the 40s.
Yeah,
Okay,
since,
so
since inception. So.
before I was born, anyway. And for those of you who don't know, there's such a thing as EMS Week, and I'll give Bobby, if you'd like, a few moments to comment about what you've done, what Cumberland Goodwill has done, and your mission. But I want to first present this to Cumberland Goodwill, and this EMS Week proclamation to designate the week of May 18th through the 24th, 2025 as Emergency Medical Services Week. And whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, every day of the year, whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, whereas emergency medical services fills healthcare gaps by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. Whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. Whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Sean M. Schultz, Mayor of Carlisle Borough, Pennsylvania, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th to 24th, 2025 as Emergency Medical Services Week. The 51st anniversary of EMS Week theme is EMS Week, We Care for Everyone. And I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities in honor of the EMS profession and the essential service it provides. And I want to underscore in that proclamation, I noted, it's not just paid folks who do this work. It's a lot of volunteers. Not to take away from the paid folks who do the work, but you don't do what you do without all the volunteers, Bobby, and you do an incredible job for this borough. So I want to first thank you for your company serving us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Borough Council, for recognizing Cumberland Goodwill. Cumberland Goodwill, like I said earlier, has been around really since the dawn of EMS here in the borough. We've been the only ambulance service servicing the borough of Carlisle since EMS started. We run about 12,000 calls a year out of our station, and we have over 60 volunteers and paid personnel, mostly paid personnel, responding to those calls. Our guys back there are the best trained. I would put them up against anyone. We are one of only 6 nationally accredited EMS agencies in the state of Pennsylvania. We truly do operate a very good and professional service. So we thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without the community behind us every day. Look for us. We're starting a bike team this year, so we're going to be at all the downtown events. On bikes for the first time. So just another way we're kind of giving back to the community and stuff. So, but thank you for your support. So.
Okay, now I had a busy day today. Usually before the meeting, when a member of our fire police needs to be sworn in, I try to squeeze it in before the meeting. But every once in a while, we get to do it during the meeting, and I think it's good to do that just to remind people again folks who are volunteers who serve this borough in really critical fashion, including Ms. Hartman, to make our routes to school safe, as I experience every day when my children make their way to school. So I'm going to call forward Captain Wirtz and David Allen Day, who goes by Allen. If you want to come on up, and I'll swear you in, Allen.
I, David Allen Day,
Solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
the
Constitution of the United States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
of Special Fire Police
with
fidelity, and that I will not knowingly receive, directly or indirectly, any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty pertaining to my office, other than the compensation allowed by law. Thank you. You have to sign. You're going to sign right there. It's official. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
I offered Captain Wirtz a moment to say something about fire police, but we do appreciate what you do. You probably tuckered out from all the discussion about rezoning.
I could talk a long time. I think Manager Armstrong knows my heart about fireplace and we do all of this work for it's actually saying
Thank you, Bob. Have a good evening. Okay, next up is, we always look forward to this, our 6-month financial outlook. Mr. Cohen.
Good evening, members of council. I do apologize for the slight typo, but this will be the first quarter performance review as opposed to the past 6 months.
Okay.
So what we have for you tonight is a snapshot in time of the performance of the borough's major funds as of the end of the first quarter, or March 31st. Happy to report that generally speaking, performance is consistent with our budgeted expectations and or historical performance. However, the small caveats to that point are what I'll be touching on tonight as we go through each fund. So with respect to the general fund, as I mentioned, generally speaking, in line with expected performance. A couple things worth noting is that we are significantly under where we would expect to be with supplies, service, utilities expenses, things like that. However, caveat to that is that we are seeing slight year-over-year increases in our professional services categories, as well as electricity costs. Council was briefed in the staff reports regarding the underbilling over the course of the past 5 years from our electricity contracted provider. And we have negotiated successfully to pay 2 years of that underbilling back over the course of the next 12 months. So that's increasing our utility expenses a little bit. With respect to revenue categories, as you're all probably familiar, property tax revenue does not begin until March and then rapidly ramps up. So a net loss in the first quarter is to be expected. However, with that, we have seen an uptick with our residents paying their property tax bills within the first quarter, presumably to take advantage of the discount period. We've also seen a substantial uptick in property transfers in 2025 already. I wanted to take a minute just to note, so there's no concern over the negative figure in the 2023 column, that is essentially reflecting an accounting issue where we had CDBG grant funds as listed as receivable. And additionally, we've been fortunate enough to see an increase in some of our other revenue, including building and permit fees. And one thing that I will point out, you'll see this consistently over the course of the funds that we discuss, is that interest and rents appear to be down year over year, but that's largely because the majority of our interest is booked as a result of bank reconciliations. And as the finance department's been involved in the annual audit, we are not where we would like to be with bank reconciliations, but in just reviewing them informally, I can tell you that we are on pace. With respect to our major enterprise fund, the first fund is the water fund. And as is the case over 2024 and into 2025, Council did make some personnel decisions over the course of the past couple years that resulted in a couple additional positions being created, and also a match in personnel allocations to ensure that they're lined up with the type of work being performed. And again, as I mentioned, interest and rents appear to be down year over year, but are on track once we get those posted. For the sewer fund, the same concept exists with respect to wages and benefits trending up over the past 2 years. And you will notice that although capital expenditures are up in a year over year comparison, they are well in line within our budget expectations. With respect to the stormwater fund, the same concept exists as far as benefits and wages. Capital expenditures are also up when compared year over year, but within budget and specifically being directed towards Chesapeake Bay and sewer improvement projects. Debt service appears to be down year over year, but will catch up once that expense is posted. And with respect to revenues, you will see an increase of charges and services, but that's a reflection of an additional billing being posted in 2025 when compared to 2024. As far as the solid waste fund goes, you will see a large drop with respect to the expenses listed, but that is largely in part because in 2023 we decided to essentially change the accounting to ensure that this fund only reflects activity pertaining to the collection and remittance of trash and recycling fees to the contracted hauler. And wages and benefits are also down in comparison, but again, that's a result of choosing to reclassify the expense to the general fund. As far as revenues go, the only things worth noting are that in appearance, intergovernmental revenue is down. However, that's very much skewed because in 2024, we actually received a long delayed grant from the Commonwealth in the first quarter. The last major fund is the parking fund. With respect to supplies and services, we're seeing an increase in those expenses, but they are accounted for with respect to new parking enforcement equipment replaced due to the end of useful life of the previous equipment, maintenance on the garage gate system, and also printing and advertising with respect to the public outreach campaign that we've undertaken to ensure that our residents and visitors are well equipped to make use of the kiosks downtown. And charges and services are down when compared to 23 and 24, and that appears to be largely due to a decrease in purchases of approximately 75 or so annual parking space leases that in 23 and 24 we were fortunate enough to take that revenue in the first quarter of both years. So by comparison, 2025 is lesser. And lastly, what we have for you is a summary chart just designed to demonstrate all of the performance for those major funds during the first quarter.
Does council have any questions? Okay, Mr. Cohen, you survived your inaugural first quarter review, so appreciate it. Richard usually did like a song and a tap dance, so, but you'll build up to that. Okay. Next up is, there you are, Joe Shane and and Pride Week. The annual visit, Joe.
Good evening, Joe Shane, 51 West I Street in the Borough. First off, some of you also know that I'm also a member of the Carlisle Area School Board, and I deeply respect what you're doing here this evening and giving voice to community members to voice concerns they have about public policy. So I deeply respect what you do here, and definitely feel your pain, as it were, for the necessity of local public service. But for tonight, we are here to the annual visit to announce that we have been working for the last 8 months to get a week of events planned for Carlisle Pride Week, beginning on Saturday, June 14th. So we've been laboring for the last 8 months, meeting monthly and now every other week to kick things off. We're very excited about this. Our original plan was to have Carlisle Pride Week happen during the first week in June, but that would bump up against international Pride celebrations in Washington, D.C., and we didn't want to have the mayor's proclamation interfere with the headliner of the international one. That would be Shakira. So no offense, Mayor Schultz, but we didn't want to have you compete with Shakira there. So we're going to kick things off on Saturday, June 14th, with a proclamation here right outside of Borough Hall, and then we'll have a walk through town to Port Park to have a picnic celebrating our LGBTQ community in Carlisle. It is a celebration, a week-long celebration that we're looking forward to, and one of our newest committee members, Olivia Ryan, is here going to give you an overview of the other events we have planned.
Hello, everyone. I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I am so proud to be a member of the Pride Committee here in Carlisle, and happy to be sharing with you all the activities that we have planned for this really fun week. So, as was mentioned, Saturday, June 14th, we have the proclamation happening here, big gay walk down to Latour Park, and a fun picnic with lots of games and fun activities. Sunday, June 15th, we're going to have Glitter and Grace worship in full color, and that's happening at the Unitarian Universalist Church. And then we will have the LGBTQ plus family brunch at Marcello's Restaurant and the Vigil for Global LGBTQ plus community at Veterans Square. Monday, we have planned a really fun teen tween night at Gather Your Party here in Carlisle. Tuesday, June 17th, we're looking to have a pool party at the Carlisle Borough Community Pool. Wednesday, June 18th is the family outdoor movie night, which is going to be Strange World. It's a PG-rated movie, and that's going to be at the Carlisle YWCA. Thursday, June 19th, we're going to be having a happy hour over at Market Cross Pub and a 40-plus LGBTQ dinner also at Market Cross Pub afterwards. We are going to be having on Friday, June 20th, a drag show, which is 16 plus over at the Unitarian Universalist Church. And then we also have Friday, June 27th and Saturday, June 28th, the Carlisle Theater is showing Moonlight. So that's what we have planned, and it should be a really fun week of events. And I'm happy to be supporting the Carlisle community.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Joe.
Any questions?
Any questions? No?
Yeah, thank you for your support as always. We really do appreciate it.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, now is an opportunity for anybody who would like to speak on any issue of borough government. You can step forward. Yeah, we'll carry your comments over to the regular meeting. Isabel, thank you. I see no one. Is anybody by Zoom, Stephanie? Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. This is a list of routine items which do not appear to be controversial in nature, which probably do not require additional discussion. They can be acted on by one motion in their current form. If discussion is desired on any particular item, any member of council or the public may request the item be removed from the consent agenda, and that item will be considered separately. Is any member of council requesting an item be removed? Any member of the public requesting an item be removed? And then I'll entertain the motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And the motion carries. So that takes care of everything through page 3 of the agenda. We'll move on to the regular agenda. And first we have table continued and recurring items.
Quick question. For me to discuss this at all, I have to take it off the table?
You can go ahead and discuss.
I can discuss
Yeah,
without
yeah.
taking it off the table?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been pondering this one for a while, and I know that we have, have counselors who are interested in having a further discussion with the community because it's such a sensitive subject with Gaza in general. But we have had different resolutions come forward, and this one is specific to what America, specifically Trump, but if Trump enacts something, it is America, right? And his choice to say that he sees it as real estate and as a takeover. So I'm just going to read what I wrote today because, like I said, I wasn't going to say anything, but today I was able to watch digital stories that students of Professor Cheremia's Indigenous storytelling class created at Dickinson College as the final projects. I think this refocused me and my reason why I think this is so important and timely to talk about this resolution. The stories ranged in scope and topic, but all touched on the boarding school and the lost stories, the lost identities, the atrocity, and the ignorance across communities and our nation about the horrific period of our history. And we on council and in this community do know about the legacy and pain of the Carlisle Industrial Indian School, and we would never allow it to happen again. And yet we are somehow not taking the opportunity, as we should, I feel, to have this hard and important conversation, to collectively say that what has been done in the past through colonization and stripping Indigenous cultures of their rights and their stories and their homes and their lives, and we don't want this to be part of our present and our future. And so with Gaza, I've been trying to keep the stories of these human beings and the Israeli families as well, but I'm trying not to just look at headlines. And so I do look at the stories, especially of children. And I read and I watch firsthand accounts of death and starvation and pain and suffering, so I understand what is at stake. I had initially prepared some data about, but after watching these stories bring these people to life, the numbers do matter, but they don't tell the story, and that is something I don't know how to convey unless others are doing the same by seeking out the reality of these people and their suffering and death. But I'm still going to provide a small offering of a little data and facts. In northern Gaza, approximately 300,000 residents are surviving on an average of just 245 calories a day. That's less than 12% of the recommended 2,100 calories. It's equivalent to a cup of cooked rice or less than a can of beans. Oxfam reports that this extreme caloric deficit has persisted since January 2024. Also, although we hear about Ukraine and other places that there are wars, the death of children is unlike any other place. And so there are different accounts, but the Palestinian Ministry of Health has it as 15,613 children. This is not the rest. Another one has it at 17,000. Here in America, one of the worst atrocities was Uvalde and the killing of American children. And that was 19 children in one day. And here, for the Palestinians, if you averaged it, it would be 27 children a day. And yet, it's not talked about. And so I'm going to read exactly what Trump has said, so we understand what is at stake. He has said, we're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza. What does that no reason to buy? There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it. We're going to get it eventually where there's jobs. We're going to create the people. going to be created for the people of the Middle East. And he has said that, you know, he's going to evict everyone that lives there and they're not allowed to come back. So that's what I have to say today. If we want to have a public conversation, I would say put it on the next workshop meeting. But I grew up watching, you know, the USA for Africa and We Are the World and Ethiopia, and seeing these frail little children. And now I see children that look like that because they are starving. And I'm not even asking to address any of that specifically, but I'm saying that if we look at that place as real estate, waterfront property, these are real words that our president has said, and not look at what that means and who we are affecting. So all that resolution says really is we should not, as a country, take over Gaza. Period. All the other things are very hard to deal with, and I don't have an answer. But I just don't. It's my job to say the things that I think need to be said publicly, and if it's denied, at least I said it. That's it.
Is there any action you'd like to take on the resolution this evening, or just open it up? Maybe after you've said that, maybe open up to council. Would that be? It's your. I'm going to call it your resolution. So it's not exactly your resolution.
I'm not asking unless anyone else feels so moved. I'm not asking to take it off the table today. I would like to keep it on the table, but if it is so. If it is needed to have a community conversation, I would say to put it on the workshop agenda and have the public can come and give all the feedback, and I will post it out. If that is required for us to actually take action on it, then that is what I guess I'm asking, because I'm not trying to do any. We have sunshine laws. I don't have conversations with everyone behind closed doors, so I'm trying to do everything transparently and publicly, and so I just wanted to say my piece. Would going to the workshop meeting and having a conversation and inviting the community, is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, what's the will of council at this point?
I personally wouldn't have a problem with us discussing it at a workshop meeting. It is to hear the stories and to hear you say it like that is very sad, and as a Black woman, I understand, and it is something that experiencing some of the things that we're experiencing right now in this country disheartens me a lot. And I realize that we are a smaller community, and that um, uh, any resolutions that we set forth doesn't mean that they'll do anything about it or even look at it, but it does make a statement um, that we are standing for something, because we serve not just a small group of people in this borough. We serve everyone who lives here. And so it's important that we think about all the people that live here and how they're being affected by things that are happening. So I don't have a problem with us having the conversation during a workshop.
Any other comments?
I am in full support of having a conversation during the forthcoming workshop meeting. I think that my major hang up with this resolution is that it's not enough. Like, I feel so helpless and I want to do more. And this feels very like, oh, Carlisle made a resolution about it. Like, I understand putting something on record and I'm very supportive about that. But I feel so impotent about what I can do and how I can help. And it's so grand and like, what does it matter that little Carlisle is doing anything? And so I feel this really intense strangle of what I am bound to do by my values and like what sort of statement we are making. I do agree that it is important to say something on record, and that like, can that be a small enough light in the deepest and darkest room? Perhaps it can be for some people. And I'm getting there that it can also be that for me, but I also want to do more. And perhaps that means that I, call my congressman and I talk to old Barb about something. But like I feel so helpless. And perhaps what I need to think of for me is that maybe this will help just a little bit and put my mind at ease for tonight. So thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Go ahead, Councilman
So
Holland.
I was the one that asked for the conversation we had in the first place. If next workshop meeting is the best place and time to do that, then I'm in support of it. What I don't want to see happen is just the seven of us to decide to take it off the table and make a decision without ever having heard from the public about it.
Anyone else? I think it's at least probably a majority that would support it anyway. So then why don't we do a motion to table until what's the date of our workshop? Do we know off? June 4th? June 4th workshop.
So I make that motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I make the motion that this item stay on the table to our workshop meeting on June 4th.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Perry. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, you're welcome. There is nothing on mayor's report. We're going to do the committees a little bit out of sequence because I think most folks who are here tonight are here for the issue we discussed at the public hearing. So we're going to have sustainable community and economic planning go first, and Mr. Childs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two items on my agenda for tonight. The first is that Borough Council may consider enacting an ordinance amending the code, the Borough of Carlisle, Chapter 255, by amending the zoning map through rezoning tax parcel ID 05-20-1796-001 to urban mixed use district zoning.
Motion by Councilor Childs. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Landis. Is there any discussion? Okay. Now I'll call the question. Roll call, please, Madam. I'm sorry. Is Councilman Melvin about to chime in?
I was just going to add one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, the one thing I wanted to say, and I heard everyone's comments before. We could do nothing today and not change the zoning, and that will not prevent 100 apartments from being built on this parcel. Maybe not by this developer. They might decide that they don't want to move forward with something that's just in the residential 3. So I just wanted to make that clear. Like, us voting today to change the zoning is not going to stop 100 apartments from being built on this parcel. And so what we're trying to do is to make the best choices and what's best for the neighborhood in a way that will integrate in the best way with the neighborhood. So I just want to be clear on that.
Any other comments?
I actually do have a comment. Just, I think regarding traffic safety, I understand that's like a really big concern, and I really grasp that. What I would say is, keep us in the loop. Like, let us know. Like, we have a Vision Zero committee that we try to address traffic calming at, and so we care about our streets. I live on Lowther, not that far from this property, and it's I'm terrified that my son could walk out the front door and get hit by a car. But there are ways to address that. We have a lot of infrastructure strategies to address traffic issues. So just keep us in mind if you ever encounter issues like that. So thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to say really quickly, please don't think that we dismiss any of your concerns. It is important that conversations are being had within the community, and that is something that we all believe in, and that is something that would, no matter how this vote comes out, there would be conversations, and we will hear you. We did have a group who came in and they spoke about, you know, some work that we wanted to do in their neighborhoods. And they came in and to a few meetings. We had some town halls, and they spoke and they let us know what their feelings were. And we always take those into consideration. So please don't think that no matter how this vote turns out, that we are dismissing your feelings, because that is not what we are doing.
Any other comment? I know I expressed myself, I think, for the most part during the public hearing. I think one thing I neglected to say is that one of the goals that this council has had, and in particular the land use reform subcommittee that has been constituted now for about a couple of years, is to try to make neighborhoods safer, more walkable. And part of the district is to create more walkable neighborhoods, and that's why there's a commercial element to that. You're trying to integrate uses that'll be useful to a neighborhood in the long term. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes a project comes forth. In this case, and again, as I said, we make these decisions based on the zoning issues itself, and not the developer who may be before us as an applicant. But we have an applicant who's willing, in this case, to move forward in what appears to be, to me, a partnership as we move into land development, to make sure that we integrate any kind of development of this parcel into the neighborhood as much as is possible. And again, as I stated earlier, and as Councilor Mellon mentioned, this could happen right now without the commercial element, without the element that really starts to create neighborhood spaces and neighborhood uses. And that's been important to me, and I think it's been important to this council, for those who have been paying attention. I always encourage people. All of our meetings are online, and we discuss things every month, especially in our workshops, that I think would be informative. And I will say, Mr. Andrews, I mean, your point about the need to make sure that neighbors understand what's happening. I think there was that exchange during the hearing that I think was informative for at least one of your neighbors. Maybe not you as much, but I think those conversations are important. So your point during your comments are well taken, and we need to improve on how we create that dialogue between us and the neighbors on issues like this. And that's, again, I think as the deputy mayor had mentioned, that's why we put the provision in the subdivision land development ordinance, to make sure that those conversations happen between the developer and the neighbors when it comes time for land development, which is yet to come. So if there's no further comment by council, then I will call the question, and Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Landis.
Aye.
Ms. Mellon.
Aye.
Ms. Perry.
Aye.
Ms. Ruth.
Aye.
Mr. Shatz.
Aye.
Mr. Stubbe.
Aye.
Mayor Schultz.
Aye. When you're down at the end of the alphabet, it almost doesn't matter by the time it gets to you, right? Okay, Mr. Shiles, you have one more item on your agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My second item on the agenda for tonight is that Borough Council may schedule a special meeting and direct the Borough Solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance amending the code of the Borough of Carlisle, adopted ordinance number 2307, and thereafter amended with respect to Chapter 183, Property Maintenance.
Motion by Mr. Shiles, schedule a special meeting and direct the Borough Solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance amending the Code of the Borough of Carlisle with respect to Chapter 183, Property Maintenance. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Then we're going to hop on back to public safety.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Was a date specified in that motion for a special meeting?
I'm sorry, there's not. Where am I? No, it's not. It's not within the motion. Does
It
it should be in the motion.
yes.
Okay, so we'll
Should I reread
so a
it?
motion for reconsideration of the prior motion is. I'll just make that motion. Is there a second? Okay, I made a motion for reconsideration. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. And now we'll need a motion. If you want to just redo the motion, add the hearing date.
Sure. Borough Council may schedule a special meeting and direct the Borough Solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance amending the code of the Borough of Carlisle adopted by ordinance number 2307 and thereafter amended with respect to Chapter 183 property maintenance on May 23rd at 8 a.m.
There's a motion as per the prior with the addition of the hearing to take place on May 23rd at 8 a.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion passes again. Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. That was the Borough Manager. Well, it's good to hear your voice, Keith. Okay. Public safety. I move that council approve a special events application for the Hope Station Juneteenth celebration to be held on June 14th, 2025 from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The event is to take place on the 100 block of West Penn Street near Hope Station and Memorial Park, along with a 1-mile walk run for justice and a health fair. Approval is contingent upon the receipt of a valid certificate of insurance naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured and the applicant reimbursing the borough 100% of the variable costs and 10% of the fixed costs associated with this event. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Roos. I'll note that although it's not exactly pertinent to this motion, the Hope Station had its gala this past weekend, celebrating the 25th anniversary. It was a wonderful event, and my son was happy when I got home because I bid on an autographed picture of Saquon Barkley. So. I'll call the question. Is there? I'm sorry, no discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of items this evening. First, I move that Borough Council approve the low bid received for the water treatment plant residual waste disposal contract from Commonwealth Disposal Incorporated of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for 5 cents per gallon.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to approve the low bid received for the water treatment plant residual waste disposal contract from Commonwealth Disposal Incorporated. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And the motion carries.
Next, I move that Borough Council enter into an engineering services contract with Herbert, Roland, and Grubik Incorporated, HRG, to assist the borough with its 2025 sanitary sewer system rehabilitation program for the total amount of $31,300, subject to the borough solicitor's review and approval.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to enter into the engineering services contract with HRG to assist the borough with its 2025 sanitary sewer system rehabilitation program. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
Next, I move the Borough Council authorize the return of financial security funding to Penn Holding Group LP for the Sunoco diesel pumps installation project in the amount of $60,000 to reflect final work completed.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to authorize the return of financial security funding to Penn Holding Group LP for the Sunoco diesel pumps installation project. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
Next, I move that Borough Council authorize the reduction in the amount of financial security provided by Capital Indemnity Corporation on behalf of Berkentine and Sons Builders Incorporated for the 650 North College Street land development in the amount of $17,340 to reflect final work completed.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to authorize a reduction in the amount of financial security for the 650 North College Street land development. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Next, I move the Borough Council amend the February 11th, 2021 engineering services contract with Gannett Fleming Incorporated to include additional permitting and environmental compliance engineering services for the 2023 water transmission main replacement project for a not to exceed amount of $25,800, subject to the Borough Solicitor's satisfactory review and approval of the amendment.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to amend the February 11th, 2021 engineering services contract with Gannett Fleming Incorporated. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Next, I move that Borough Council approve the replacement of the existing catwalk at the wastewater treatment plant by Pumping Solutions Incorporated, PSI of York Springs, Pennsylvania, for $125,413 through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Purchasing Program, CoSTARS number 016-E22-228.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to approve the replacement of the existing catwalk at the wastewater treatment plant by Pumping Solutions Incorporated of York Springs. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And finally, I move that Borough Council approve the purchase and replacement of gravity filter media from Unifilt Corporation of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, for $65,300 at the Carlisle Water Treatment Plant through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Purchasing Program, CoSTARS number 016-E24-367, and that Borough Council approve the installation of the replacement media by PSI Pumping Solutions Incorporated of York Springs, Pennsylvania, for $122,094 at the Carlisle Water Treatment Plant through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Purchasing Program, CoSTARS number 016-E22-228.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to approve the purchase of replacement gravity filter media from Unifilt Corporation of Wilkes-Barre and to approve the installation of replacement media by PSI Pumping Solutions Incorporated of York Springs. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And that concludes the Public Works Committee report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbe. Then new business is an opportunity for anybody who wasn't heard earlier in the meeting from the public who would like to be heard on any issue of borough government. Is there anybody who would like to step forward? Mr. Smith? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll catch you next.
Hey, I apologize for not catching this at the first opportunity. I was just saying bye to Joe. But I would first like to agree with what was stated, we'll say during the initial public comment about speeding in school zones. I spoke last month about one job. My other job is substitute teaching at our high school. I ride there every day on an e-bike, which conveniently gives you your miles per hour to the 10th of a mile per hour. So I stick to around 14 miles an hour in that 15 mile per hour speed limit, if not less, but there's a steep downhill for anyone that's gone into the parking lot there. And am very often passed by students or parents driving their students. So just one firsthand anecdote that it's certainly an issue, but also I wish I'd gotten to say, well, they're still here, but our regional special police or fire police are the front line of defense that we do have there right now, and I'm really grateful for the work they do. They put their bodies on the line out there directing traffic every day to make the children of the borough safer. Aside from that, I am also here to repeat my support for what I believe is now a proposed ordinance to make Carlisle a welcoming borough that will not comply with federal immigration agencies with information or logistical sharing beyond what is already required by federal law. As I and others have said in past meetings, I think it's an important statement about who we are as a borough and a service to the people who live here and make it a community. And I'm also just curious, since I'm pretty sure it has been proposed, where that ordinance is, given the urgency of some of these issues, whether it's with the solicitor or I'm still learning the review process and all. So
Sure. Yeah, that's with legal counsel, and we expect to have that back in June.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. We'll need your name and address for the record.
No worries. Joshua Castor, 308 Cherry Street. I walked in late. I didn't necessarily have an opportunity to jump in on the hearing, and it's no worries. The lot in question obviously sits at the dead end of the street that I live on. I run my dog around it in every day. There's comings and goings and delinquency and whatever other happenings in the lot, and I would love to see it transform into something that is community positive, whatever that might look like. So I appreciate tonight's vote, though I disagree with it. I don't know that the transition from residential 3 to urban mixed use is the same. You guys, I guess in brevity, made the comment that there's nothing stopping 100 units going up. Well, there is. I mean, R3 has dwelling density limitations that the urban use kind of open up. Under opportunity zone, there's a financial advantage to putting more units in that space. So sure, from a contractor's perspective, this transition is profitable for them. So we'll see what happens. I think back in 2008, 2013, when there was proposals for development of this lot in the past, it got a lot of community pushback. I think there's limitations in infrastructure, plumbing, sewage, traffic, that 112 units or whatever excessive proposed dwellings would create community setbacks that aren't necessarily representative of Carlisle. Carlisle is quaint, charming, it's historical, and the transformation in a direction that is higher density of residential housing isn't necessarily reflective of the reasons that a lot of members of the community choose to live in Carlisle. So I guess in wrapping it up, one of my questions is as this lot continues to kind of be proposed for development or whatever else, are those discussions going to be part of the zoning hearing in the future, or is it planning commission? Where kind of when can we timeline and how can we timeline those conversations or discussions?
Right. So we don't know exactly when they might submit a land development plan, but once they submit a land development plan, that will first go to the planning commission. So there'll be an opportunity at the planning commission level to have public comment. So you want to watch that agenda, and they're all going. Jared, I don't know if you have some sense of when they might be submitting.
I don't, but I agree with what was said.
Yeah. Okay. And then once the planning commission makes a recommendation one way or the other, then it'll come back to us. Part of I think you were here for the one or two times that we made mention about the requirement we placed in the subdivision and land development ordinance that they would need to reach out to neighbors within what was it 200 feet of the 200 feet of the property line. So all around the property line within 200 feet, they would have to reach out to those neighbors. I don't know if you're quite within that 200 feet.
Oh,
so
I'm probably within 25 feet of the property.
Are you?
So,
I was trying to, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's got a pretty significant impact.
Yeah, and I didn't hear your street address. Yeah, so there will be those opportunities to speak publicly on the plan and then get more information about what it's all about.
And that really quick, that outreach meeting that's required in our subdivision and land development, like that's something that we task the developer. That's before they come and submit that. So there's a couple different layers of opportunity. I just want to make sure the order.
That's right. So the developer has to host the neighbors meeting and provide evidence as part of the completeness check. So
sure,
we'll check to see that they did that as part of our administrative completeness review.
Okay, and I'm sure that this is part of their due diligence as part of still pending sale on the property. So there's a lot of things that could change, but I guess one curiosity I have, and tonight's vote stands as voted, but in these types of rezoning conversations or discussions, especially to the extent where you're taking a vacant lot and rezoning it to the extent that this will have an impact. Are there opportunities to have a conditional use rezoning where there's a presentation of the proposed project and it's more thoughtful completion as opposed to rezoning it and then being presented a project? Because I think by rezoning this particular lot, with the extent that it's an opportunity zone, if this developer chose to buy it, resell it, and that rezoning stood as such, there's a really significant range of the types of projects or businesses that could be placed under now what is a urban mixed use rezoning. So I think I just have reservation that there should be a little more transparency as to what the development of a rezoned lot looks like before it's necessarily voted into a new rezoning structure. So that would be my only comment for future consideration.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Very well. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome. Anything else? Stephanie and anybody by Zoom? Okay. Then we will move to reports from council and staff. Councilor Bruce.
Yeah, I had two things that I wanted to note today. He's not at the bench, but I wanted to say thank you to our firefighters in town, especially the Union Fire Company who assisted in the Hammond Rock fire. They got into a bit of a precarious situation there, but they were able to escape the fire that was sort of encircling them due to some wind change, and they were able to get out without injuries. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for assisting with that. And the Union Fire Company is one of the things that makes me very proud of our town and our surrounding municipalities. So thank you to them. And then secondly, I wanted to mention on a very different note that the Carlisle Community Pool will be opening up on Saturday, May 24, which is rapidly approaching. So get your pool passes, get out there. There's been a lot of work done. There's some great new employees there this summer. So have some fun and spend some time at the pool. That's it.
Councilor Mellon. Yeah. Councilor Stubbe. Deputy Mayor Linus. Councilor Perry. Councilor Shiles.
No.
Okay. That was a tease. Not even anything about the bike ride. I saw your big smile when there was a mention of bike riding by Cumberland
We'll be
Goodwill.
having the drum bike at the Pride, the Big Gay Walk. We're having the Big Gay Bike Ride with the Big Gay Walk. So,
And
I look forward to that.
Big gay drums on the bike too.
The drums will be on there too, as long as our drummers show up.
Borough Manager Armstrong. Anything? All right. Okay. Thank you. I'm sure the solicitor doesn't have anything more to add. Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.